This screencast is going to be for profit and finding the break-even points as pointed out in this example. In Hackettstown, Dippin' Dots is trying to determine how much they should sell their donuts for in order to make the most money. In the rule below, P represents the profit and X is the price of the donuts. So P is equal to negative 30 plus 32x minus 3x squared. So the first thing I did was put the equation into y equals in my calculator, and I am looking for the break-even points, and that means when y is equal to 0 and there is no profit made and there is no money lost. Okay, so here I'm going to look in the table, and the break-even point is going to be somewhere in between $1 and $2 because I go from a negative to a positive, and then somewhere in between $9 and $10 because I go from a positive to a negative. So if I want to look at this in the table, then I'm going to quote-unquote zoom in between $1 and $2, so I can do second table set. My table starts at 1, and then I'm going to count by dimes and then look at the table, and I'm finding out that in between $1 and $1.10 it goes from negative to positive, so I can start at $1 and then count by pennies and look at the table, and then my first break-even point is about $1.04. So if they sell the donuts for $1.04, they'll only make 3.5 cents, which is not a lot of profit. So the first break-even point is $1.04, and the second break-even point is going to be somewhere in between $9 and $10. So I'll set my table to start at 9 and count by a dime and look at the table, and then somewhere in between $9.60 and $9.70. So started at 9.6 and then count by pennies and then take a look at the table, and I find that at $9.62 is their other break-even point. I'm not going to go farther than that, and if they charge $9.63, they lose money. So the second break-even point is $9.62. Now I just showed how to find the break-even points in the table, but you should also be familiar with how to find the break-even points in the graph. So I'll go back and make my table. I'll start it at 0 and I'll count by 1 because that's what we're most comfortable with. And my negatives are at 0 and 10. I have negative numbers. So when I set up the window to look at the parabola, I can go from 0 to 10, and I know that I will cross the x-axis. And then the maximum here somewhere in the y's, okay, I need to set it up to be able to find my maximum. It looks like it's going to be right around 5 at about $55. So when I set up my window for the y's, my y minimum does not need to be negative 30. I'll make it negative 10 so that I can see the zeros. And my y max should be 60, and I'll count by 5s. This way I'm going to get the whole parabola. Thing of beauty there. Alright, so if I'm finding the zeros, I do second calculate, and it's option 2. And I want to find the first 0, which is over here. So to the left of the 0 is negative. So when I'm finding the left bound of the left 0, my y value needs to be negative. So I'm just going to hold the cursor here until I have a negative value in the y, and that'll be my left bound. My right bound needs to be positive. So I click over until I get a positive number in the y right here. Then I hit enter. I want the calculator to guess, and it guesses at about 1.038, which is about $1.04, which confirms what we already knew. And then the second 0 is on the other side, so I'm going to push 2. The left bound of the right 0 should be the positive number because I am to the left of the 0. So this one's going to be positive all the way on the other side of the parabola. So I'm just pressing and holding the arrow here, watching my y's until I get to a small y value that is positive. Perfect. And then the right bound needs to be negative, so I click over one time. I get a negative y value, hit enter. I want it to take a guess, so I hit enter, and I get the other one to be at $9.62, and that is when y is equal to 0. So that is how to find the break-even points two different ways, using the table and using the graph.